All right, absolute legends in action here. One of the fabled Canadians playing as the Japanese going up against Liu MT on his Mongols. Now, I have very strong feelings about Highview. I vomit, I puke at it, but I make exceptions when A, I see Louis, and B, I see Mongols. This is not a civ that's going to wall up. It's not a civ that's going to play the late game. In fact, I am already so excited. Guys, this is something I've actually felt quite strongly about, is that Koka Township can work against the Mongols. It's actually the best civ to do it against on land maps. Two reasons. One, do you really, really want to build a landmark that spawns free farms loose from your TC against a civ that gets paid to burn buildings? The answer is should be no. Definitely should be no. If you want to know why you shouldn't, go check out our Dumu versus Lucifron game on YouTube where they play on Canal, and you'll understand. You just keep paying your opponent. It's ridiculous. The other thing that makes me rate Koka Township quite highly is that if your opponent gets a loose stone spawn, you can just sabotage all their production. Now, unfortunately, in this particular game, Green's going to feel scammed because Louis got a fantastic spawn. Stone right next to the TC, gold actually quite close to the TC. There was no real chance that you were going to find an opportunity to punt at his production. But I do think that this approach coming out is very logical on maps such as Cliffside, Dry Arabia. These are maps where actually this build can work because the stone is usually loose enough about 60 to 70% of the time that two Shinobis can GG a game. But yes, unfortunately, Green's going to have to think a bit more creative in this one. People ask, who is Green? I think Green might be Wham. Like, I'm trying to figure out by aligning like the persons and when they played. What I do know is they are from Canada. I believe there was suspicions that it might have been Zertan using a VPN before, but I could have sworn I saw Zerti playing against this account before. So that kind of erases that idea. In fact, the interesting thing is you can scroll back like 3 months plus and you can't actually find games against Wham or Puppy Paw, right? Which is what made me a teensy bit suspicious as to the real identity of this particular account. And it's always tough to kind of tell Wham from Puppy Paw because I don't think they always share the same PC, but like they tend to be on at different times from what I've noticed. You will very rarely get treated to Wham versus Puppy Paw outside of scrims. So, tech up complete. Rax opening coming in. Now, the interesting thing that I still like about Shinobi on this particular map is your opponent's gone for Silver Tree, as makes sense. But think about the vision. Right? Outside the Khan, you're not going to see anything as Louis. And the reason that's a problem is that you can actually just sit these Shinobi in the tree lines on the way to the trade post and snipe them. Because remember, although you don't get bonus damage against traders and you are a melee unit, you're a fast melee unit that has insane base damage. You can call them Puppy Wham until further info. You know, that makes sense. So, no, wait, no, we've got to do better than that. It's Puppy Wham Magic. Puppy Wham Magic. There you go. It rolls off the tongue. Pwamjik. Pwamjik, over here, in the green plains, the Japanese, has decided to get quite aggressive. Spearmen coming out in the Feudal Age. I'm usually aggressively against this. I still feel like I'm aggressively against this. It's interesting because I'm wondering why Green doesn't just try to go for Fast Castle. I feel like Fast Castle still works quite well here. Maybe if we look at the sheep count, we'll get a little bit more of an insight. He only has 6, so that tells you exactly why Green isn't fast castling. That is not enough food to go for a fast castle build. The berries might get you there, but that's kind of risky, right? You'd have to invest in more outposts. So it seems Green, instead of taking like a suboptimal castle timing, has said it makes a lot more sense to block Yellow's eco-inflation. And it makes sense when you consider how quickly that eco does inflate, right? Silver Tree making these 40% cheaper, as well as producing them 40% quicker, has been the bane of many a person facing Mongols' existence, right? This civ tends to inflate very quickly. Stables follow up as well. You know what the funny part is? Because of the fact that like Magic plays a decent amount of them, and I've seen the way that Wham and Puppy Paw plays, this could be either player still. This doesn't tell you anything. Both of those players tend to lean into the idea of playing earlier Japanese. I would say that one identifying factor for Puppy Paw over Wham is Puppy Paw tends to use Yumi more than Wham. But once again, like Wham will do it, right? Like I actually think of the top level players that play Japanese, Puppy Paw and Wham are the only ones I'm seeing with some consistency doing Yumi. The other one that started to add into that equation recently is Marine Lord. Obviously, we haven't got to the Yumi yet, but honestly, when you're 1-1-1 like this, you've got Horseman plus Spearman, I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't actually be a stretch to shift into Archers as well. Because it's kind of got what he needs from a Shinobi factor, right? Like, you just want enough to keep disabling the trade so your opponent can't scale it. That becomes a bigger problem now for Yellow because Yellow's decided to go into Keshiks. And Keshiks are really expensive when you don't have Silver Tree behind it. Especially when you're trying to add in Archers. Yeah, I really still like this idea of just going Yumi. It looks like we might just be going for Castle now, though. A lot of food's being saved up. Gold is being hoarded as well. So we're definitely going towards Castle, right? Wrong. More Horseman Spears coming. The reason why I like Yumi so much, before anyone tries to say I'm a fanboy, is this comp doesn't handle Yumi very well, especially if you don't have trade behind it. And the other reason why Yumi feels great here is because you don't have long-term food surplus, right? You've got the berries, which is kind of great, but you're against Keshiks, coming out is really risky. You have an insane amount of wood. And Yumi scale really quickly. It's also just a great unit for intercepting trade when it eventually scales. Because we are reaching a point now where Yellow should be able to get rid of these Shinobi. I think what really impresses me is the way that Green has used this Stealth Forest against him, though. Like, you don't want to be running into melee range against Shinobi. It's a death sentence. That's why this might be his best opportunity to try and strike, but he needs to make sure he gets the kills. If the Shinobi just Shunshin here, he can do significant damage, but weirdly enough, Green says no, he just backs away. I get where he's coming from, though, right? It's 3 Shinobi versus 6 Archers and a Keshik, and they can kite you. So really dicey to try and get involved in that equation. Instead, he wants to keep these very valuable units alive, because it's going to mean that he doesn't have to strain his eco building more. In the meantime, though, I think the Horsemen are still being held back. However, the Keshik numbers have me a little bit worried now for Green. You're in a situation where you're playing a prolonged feudal. Your opponent has more Keshiks than you have Horsemen. He almost has more Keshiks than you have Spears. I very much favor Yellow's position in this game right now. And the crazy thing is, this is a classic example of how the perception of trade can warp your game into a negative, right? When you think your opponent is doing something, they do something else. Like this, the classic example of this used to be Mr. Mr. would do this all the time. He would build a stables and then not use it. He would build a racks and then not use it. And then you'd act as if he was going to, and then he'd get a step ahead of you on the counter. That's kind of what's happened here by the trade post being there. But the problem is, like, the upside of it actually happening is so big that you can't just read into it as you might be being baited. You have to address the threat. And now we have this awkward scenario where Yellow feels like he's got enough Keshiks up. Not only is he going to rely on the Silver Tree, he's now also adding in a marketplace alongside it. Nami is now marching south. What I really don't like about Green's approach here is he's being forced to split his army. Louis can just run around with only Keshiks and win. It's a little bit scrappy, though. Definitely taking more damage than he should in this fight. But this is the thing, right? When the Spearmen are outnumbered, the Keshiks are going to wail on you, and they're all going to sustain. So yeah, very awkward coming minutes, I think, for Green, because unless you can get military number advantage and strike one place, these little raids on the trade aren't going to work. And to be honest, like, this would be the perfect time for a full strike. The reason... Oh my god, did the cash... I didn't even question it. I was like, these villagers are here to build an outpost. Louis like, wait a second, you don't belong to me. Wow. So just like that, that's 360 resources down the drain. It's actually insane how bad Shinobi are against Keshiks when outnumbered. You just saw why, right? Like, you just get melted. But the crazy thing to think about here is you're now at a stage where the best move would be to take everything and strike one location. But I don't think that Green realizes it because he hasn't scouted the extra marketplace. That's why it's a good reason, right? It's because it's not just one Silver Tree that does these very cheaply. It's now the full price of a second trade, right? So that gets quite expensive when you add those together. The problem is Green doesn't have the info to tell him this, right? Like when you look at his vision on the map, he doesn't see a damn thing. By the time he realizes it, it may be too late. Just coming in, Keshiks just chasing after the eco. This would be the point where I'd love to see some stone gathering, and it looks like that's what Green's doing. So I feel like this should be for the Daimyo. You want to get your hands on the Uma Bannerman. Uma Bannerman with these horsemen means they'll be able to wail on Keshiks. It could be a second TC. The reason you go second TC here is because you don't think you can hit the trade. But if you have any level of confidence in your ability to get past the Keshiks, you should be going Daimyo. In fact, he's already got farms. Yeah, this has to be Daimyo. If it's not Daimyo, I'm baffled. When you build farms like this, if you're not getting Daimyo, it just feels like a wasted effort. You should just be on berries instead, right? Awesome raid coming in. Good double outpost coming out from Louis, though. Notice he doesn't even want to hang around. Steel Dagger is coming through soon. Undermesh is already there, but that extra armor is about the offset. And it looks like we are going to be getting Daimyo. Yes, it has been queued up. So this will be mass Bannerman Horseman, right? I feel like you could choose to go Yuumi at this stage, but the problem is there's just too many Keshiks now. The only way you could go Yuumi in this game is if you've done 2 TC. Awesome raids. We'll try to snipe some of those archers. The problem that I'm just noticing is Louis just too on the mark with his Keshik movements. And what worries me is what comes next. You can already see he's starting to save up, starting to stockpile. It makes a lot of sense, right? Like, he hasn't seen a reason to reinvest his resources yet. And you could argue that that's, like, kind of silly. Like, invest them now and you can't be beaten down the line. But his paranoia is always going to be that Japan's going to go castle. Because if Japan goes castle, Keshiks lose to Mount Samurai. Keshiks also lose very convincingly to Onimusha. So you can't rush the age if your opponent is doing it as well. You need to try and find these little skirmishes, find these probes where Keshiks keep winning, and then sneak up in the castle ahead of the Japanese. And one is the chosen one. He is the Neo. He is the Jet Li. He is Louis MT. Passion Center, Umabana making a lot of difference here. The double melee tech as well. And you just saw the melee armor come through. This is a really important lesson to take from Louis. Melee armor is insanely important when you're playing against the Japanese. Because they get an extra bonus melee tech, they're essentially getting double the bonus damage against you, right? So you have to offset it. It's not even a negotiation point in these matchups. So great read there to go in for it. Means his Keshiks can actually take quite the beating now. 4 armor, still really impressive damage. We're looking at what? It's actually not true what you're seeing there. It's not +4. Because, remember, it rounds up the UI values. So you're at 11 damage, you're getting an extra 15%. So you're adding in about 1.7 extra damage. So yeah, you're like 13.7, I think it is. Still pretty high, right? Like against these Keshiks, like at that stage, you're almost at their level. The difference is obviously you have less armor, you have less armor, plus health, but you are spending a lot less on these ones. Keshik Umu, raiding in. Good pincher here. I like that green is kind of relentless in his pressure, but the problem is, this is why it's been allowed. Castle Age has been complete by Louis. Green needs to catch up. 19 now into the floating gate. Keshik is at least going to be pushed away by the Bannerman, so good timing on that. And this is all because he rushed the Stone Gathering, right? He's got level 2 Daimyo. This might seem like a little bit overkill, but you have to do this when you're not playing with the Core Storehouse. You need that extra food boon so quickly, especially when you're trying to spam Horsemen in the early phase of the game. So what is the win conditions now? For the Japanese, it's going to be prioritizing relics and roaming with Mounted Samurai, because Mounted Samurai are uncounted in this game. What the Mongol player now needs to seriously consider doing is adding in spears and prep for that, but that feels bad, right? Instead, you're probably going to look to switch into crossbows and still go Keshiks. It's not a bad comp, but it is very risky against mass Onimusha and Mount Samurai. And the crazy thing about the Japanese is they will mass those samurai quickly, right? Yorishiro guarantees it. In fact, it's simply not enough on its own. Green's even adding in extra stables on top of it. First of the monks moving out. I really want to see Louis playing into this, and signature Louis move here. The double prayer 10. I love that this guy does this. This is a really smart move. At this point in the game, it's a relic race. You have mobility on the map. You've got mass Keshiks. Your opponent's only now building into good mounted units. So you need to leverage that while you still have the advantage, because over time, you're going to lose it. So really good read. Louis, I feel like he's the only player doing this right now, but I think this is going to start creeping back in with these fast castle builds. We've even seen him do it with civs like the English, where he's playing 2TC White Tower. He'll immediately follow up with double Monastery. I think Louis has to get a bunch of towers on one side and spear crossbows. That's what I was thinking, but like the problem that I see with that Baltoon is if he does that build, then by the time it gets online, another Yoshiro comes out, you switch racks, and you mass Onobigisha, right? There is a weak point, usually, in the eco around this point with a switch Noda Bigisha, but in fairness, Green's been adding in a decent number of farms. I don't think that's the biggest concern for him. Spears are going to clear up a decent number of the Keshiks. It worries me that he took that fight. Losing Keshiks like that to trade for Spears is bad, because the Mount Samurai are coming, and you do not have an answer to them. And yes, you are correct. BC has done this double monk build before. I feel like he doesn't do it as aggressively at the beginning of Castle Age anymore. Louis, from what I've been seeing recently, is the player most frequently doing this within the first 30 seconds of Castle. Moving out onto the berries now. Keshik is going to spot this out, but... Wow, I actually thought he had textiles. It was taking so long to kill him for a second there. The Keshik count is still scaling upwards, right? Now, this is very important. If Louis can just keep moving in with the Kurotai, the Mount Samurai will struggle against this Keshik count. But you need to make sure that you're always fighting with the Kurotai is. You can't get too distracted by these small raids that you're seeing the Japanese player commit to. Love the micro as well. Uma Bannerman spamming in, dude. This is a sick little raid. Only a few units in, but they could easily take out 5, 6, 7 traders. That's problematic considering this is right now a premium cavalry race. We should be seeing a Euroshiro switch soon. Gold has already been expired. That is a problem here. In fact, if Louis realizes that the gold is expiring around now, he could just play blocker on the south side and then scout north. At which point, green doesn't have much in terms of comp options, right? You've only got one relic in, a second... Oh, sorry, you've got no relics in. I think he's dropped one off, right? Yeah, he's got one sitting here. That's not going to be enough gold for this strategy. So he has to fight, he has to get out. Amara's going to come out, though. Great move coming in from Louis. Green is going to stand his ground, but the Keshiks... There's enough of them right now. I feel like this choke point's working against green a bit. Second wave of Uma Bannerman is going to come in, and that should be enough to now break through. Louis, why is the Kurotai sitting here? Oh my god, that's a critical blunder. Louis just threw away an insanely huge edge there. Keshik count has now been reduced. Green now has a clear heavy cav lead. He's shutting down the trade. This game is going to snowball fast. Louis' only kind of recourse is to rush those relics remaining. Make sure he gets the majority, but it's already looking like a game where green should get 2 of the 3 relics, which isn't too bad. Possibly 3 still. I feel like I see this a lot, and it's crazy that I see this still at the absolute highest level of play. This was a mistake. Not moving the Kurotai in was a critical error. You only play the Kurotai this way if you're going to keep raiding and not committing. The moment Louis decides it's time to commit to a main fight, the Kurotai should be with him. But he never even started moving it. And it wasn't a case of not having pack up, because I'm pretty sure he already got that. Louis is usually quite good at getting the pack up tech. The problem was he just completely blanked it. The fight came way too fast, and it was a great read by green. So all of a sudden, green now has access to 8k more gold. He can easily wall this off as well, because it's got tree lines. And at that stage, we're going to start hunkering down. That gets scary for the Mongols, because when you start talking about hunkering down on a map like Highview, walls is what immediately comes to mind. And you're all cringing when I say it. I'm going to say it a little bit. Walls. Right? You hate to hear it. But the reality is, in this game, Louis can't wall. So he's going to face raid after raid. He has to get those spearmen and crossbowmen together en masse that Baltoon was talking about. But he will need a lot of them for a map this wide. Wow, that's crazy. Wait, did we just get another... Was it a $25 dono? Have I got to do push-ups off this game? Casters. Thank you very much. You guys are incredible. Love to see the fundraising already. So Step Lance is now coming in. I don't like this. You're too late now. You can't do this anymore. Keshiks don't work now. You have to go spear crossbows. Right? You have to try and brute force a fight. But I think genuinely what's happening is Lou's getting in his head about the Onabagisha spam. Because if that happens, he's dead. But because he's not changing the narrative, look at what Green's doing. That's 6 stables of production right now. This build is insane. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do double Euroshiro stables. Because it's usually so bad. Right? Like, your opponent usually gets a counter to it. They build spears, they build crossbows, and you want to move into things like Onabagisha and Samurai, which just have a lot more flexibility between them. But the weird part is the way that Louis has approached this game. And the fact we're playing Highview Trade means that mass amount of Samurai is actually really smart out of green. These fights, not so smart out of yellow. Louis, instead of collecting all the crossbows up and fighting together, he's being forced to split them out. I say not so smart. The blame really isn't on him. It's just what green is doing to him. Right? This is, in its entirety, the thing that I think tilts a lot of people about Highview. And the crazy thing is, even when Louis has all this vision on the map, it's kind of irrelevant. because he can never dance quick enough to this tune, right? Being forced to switch crossbows makes you even slower than when you went archers. Oh, this is not going to be a good fight for him. Monk's just frontlining. Raids are still not being shut down. I'm not really sure what Louis' way out is at this rate. He's just trying to survive all the cuts, right? In fairness, green is burning an insane amount of gold. Wait, now you move the crowtime up? What? What happened here? I'm so confused. Louis, did he think he would be able to walk in? No way. So he's just lost the Kurotai. The biggest advantage you have in this matchup in Castle Age is now gone. That's crazy. Now, what I was going to say is that Green's comp won't work long-term because he's going to run out of gold for Mount Samurai, right? That's inevitable because these are so expensive. You're spending 110 gold per. However, if you start giving over your strongest advantage in Castle, I could see mass Mount Samurai on their own actually winning this. Speaking of which, the second retinue has already been over here. I love the fact that Lou's like, I can't fight him. Build more outposts, right? A million of these Springles might be good enough. The problem is getting them all online in time. And also, the other issue you're going to have is, sure, you can protect the neutral trade post, but what about, like, here? What about here? Right? This is always the frustration of these type of spawns. Louis didn't exactly get what I call a friendly spawn on Highview. In fact, he also got scammed. You guys want to know one of the big reasons we don't see Highview in competitive? I mean, there's many, right? Like, obviously, the fact that the back trade is really bad design, the fact that you've got these sacred sites in the corner. But here's another interesting one for you. Count the tree lines that Louis got. Then have a look on the other side of the map at how much Wham, Magic, or Puppy Paw got. This is absurd. He got a full extra fat woodline. Imagine you're Louis and you have that as an extra defense. Like, it's much easier to predict these Mount Samurai, right? Because probability is that one's going to spawn, say, here, right? You can sneak around the back. But it's just way too much open ground. That's why you're seeing him just suffer death by, I wouldn't even say 1,000 cuts. It feels like more like 100 cuts when it's Mount Samurai. I love the fact as well that Green has enough Uma Bannerman to buff the different groups. That he just shifts between, right? You feel much less bad about losing this battle soon? I actually think that this matchup's really good for Japanese. I've heard some people say otherwise, and I've shaken my head every time. Like, this matchup is even easier for Japan if the stone doesn't spawn right next to the TC. Because you just disable their production, right? It's kind of like, when you play Mongols as Japanese, it's kind of like how you feel when you play any Civil Water maps. Your Shinobis actually have an insane amount of value. But yeah, this Mount Samurai approach just works perfectly. Like, your opponent goes Keshiks, he can't beat you. Even with Step Lancer, like, in equal numbers, you're going to lose that fight, right? Mount Samurai is just hit too hard. You can't sustain off of it. So I've got Whistling Arrows coming in. Maybe the Defense Arrow could change my mind about that. If Louis can force a full committed fight with the full duration of the arrow, Defense Arrow actually might change things. But that's the problem here, right? Is Green is non-stop raiding. And it makes sense. Like, if you want to play heavy cav, you shouldn't be fighting. You should be raiding. And as long as he keeps sticking to that narrative and not changing it, he'll win this game in the next 10 minutes. Right? Louis has already been reduced down to, what, 16 traders? At this point, Green's about to have more economy. Now, one thing you do need to be careful about is clumping up your cav too much. I don't like how many he brought in here. The problem with what Green just done here is you ran fully condensed into one location, and you know you're being chased by Keshiks that have Yam, right? Like, the outpost network is starting to get wide enough. So really what Green should be doing is striking here, here, and just before here. It makes you a little bit more predictable. If you're going to make this dive into this area, there needs to be a simultaneous dive on the right side. Green desynced himself a bit here. Now, the question I have, is Green ever going to switch comp? Because I'm noticing him actually queuing up Shintos. Wait, is he going to go mass healer with Mounted Samurai? That's quite frankly absurd. I'm not even sure that works. we used to see this build. Do you guys remember when Mongols used to do this quite a lot? They would go for the step readout, they would gather all the relics, and then they would build like 20 monks in heal. It was an interesting strat for them, but I feel like the issue for Japanese is you're more gold burdened, right? Like massing Mountain Samurai is not cheap. I guess the logic here is that maybe you have a little medic center, you heal your guys, and then send them back in. That's a really interesting way of playing this. Because you should almost always get away, right? Because I think what Green's realizing now is over time, this comp would just die. But its advantage over Samurai and Onobugisha is that it can leave and get healed. That's kind of cool. That's actually really cool. Old Mongol versions would protect trade with outposts. Why does it not work here? I actually think it was always kind of bad on high view. It's just in the older meta when we used to see it, the outposts were just better. But the other thing you have to keep in mind is against the Samurai deflect the first spring shot. So a lot of your defensive impact is removed straight away, right? Like the Mount Samurai compared to other civs will just get deeper, do more damage. Speaking of which, that is a lot of Mount Samurai. Oh my lord. Well, he got the mass together, but it looks like Louis had enough. Yellow now marching the main. The problem is the Shogunate Castle is in. The rocket launcher to kill anything. Oh god, this is actually a terrible dive right now, Louis. He's losing one Keshik every few seconds. Even if he kills 5 villagers, it's not going to feel worth it for this. A few Mount Samurai now reacting as well, which is going to keep him underneath the TC. Meanwhile, a dive towards the main the other way. And it looks like the trade no longer has protection. Green is now looking to flank from the south side. There is an insane amount of woodworkers out here. Archers have arrived. Keshiks have reset. But in this trade, who has more exposed economy? A lot of damage done here. Green has shrunk down to 69 workers. 22 still idle. And a lot running for their lives. Green needs to find this. Oh my, dude, are you kidding me right now? He's so focused on the trade, he's not attacking what's easier. This is absurd. Yellow now shifting north side. A few Mount Samurai have actually found him. Meanwhile, it looks like the Keshiks spotted out the gold on the flank here. Green now at risk. Yellow, wait, where are these traders going? What? This game is wild. Wait, Baltoon, is this you again? No, this is not Baltoon. Nice try, sucker. You need to kill so much economy right now. This is crazy. The other issue is like damage done to green is more permanent than done to yellow, right? Because of all the trade. Mountain Samurai count is at 42. I do not remember the last time I saw a Japanese player with this many Mountain Samurai. This is absurd. Shinto's is like, go brothers, leave. Yeah, no joke, mate. We're not waiting around for you. Oh my god. So the problem that you now have is Louis' eco count is deceptive, right? Because so much of it is trade. 22 of his eco can't work right now because of these raids. So actually, Greeny's ahead. Oh my god, what a crazy game. Alright guys, what is going to be the peak Mount Samurai count? Get your predictions in. What is the most Mount Samurai we'll see here? Because before you give a really safe and conservative number, reminder that Green still has 10k gold here. And then you can always come across and take the Mongols as well, right? This is bonkers. I can't believe they've just not switched unit type. It's weird as well, because, like, you know, Onibigisha can kind of work against Keshik because of the numbers. It's hard, but, like, outnumbering Keshiks is quite easy from this point, right? Like, if you start switching into that unit comp now, you can clear up the remaining Keshiks you Mount Samurai, and then Onibigisha can keep everything else down. And it would be more cost efficient as well, right? Like, he's got all these farms. It's actually gold that's the problem long term. So, yeah, a little bit surprised by this. Mount Samurai. Flash comes in. Attack speed arrow is going to be activated, not even the defense one. So instead, it's going to be a search to the backside. But I don't like this fight right now. The traders are also tanking a lot of damage on the way through. Green just threw away quite a lot of cav. And I'm really not sure it was worth it. I mean, crossbow count is quite low. Maybe I'm being unfair to him here. This was kind of insane. He mopped out almost all the crossbows out of this. And he still has 30 more Mount Samurai. +1 melee tech, guys. That's all I can say. And yeah, that one, Keshik, drawing that Mount Samurai wave away was big. I think it's the only reason Louis is still alive, but that might be about to change. Crossbow count has been heavily reduced. I think that first wave, if there wasn't a second behind this, that was a really bad throw by Green. But because he has so many extra Mount Samurai in reserve, keeping this crossbow count low is a really big problem for Louis. Now, the one way that Green can lose this right now is fighting here. The Kurultai buff will make it good enough for him. He needs to fight away from it. And yeah, Mongols not producing Spearmen, it's mainly because of the mobility. I think you can do it here, though, for defense, because of the aura, right? Yam moves you very quickly. And then you basically peel the Keshiks and you leave Spearmen with the crossbows. It's not the worst of ideas. The problem now that makes this really daunting for Louis is you have to remember that when you're outnumbered, Spearmen are kind of bad. By kind of, I mean, they really suck. Because what's going to happen, especially against Mount Samurai, is even worse, actually. When the charge comes in, you're going to stun the Cav, but you're going to get stunned yourself. So if you're outnumbered, the remaining Cav units attack you, but you don't attack back. What makes this doubly bad against the Spearmen, against Mount Samurai, rather, with Spearmen, is the deflective armor. Deflective armor means your first hit does nothing. Oh my god, the raid and the trade. Kurultai has tried to move across. It's just out of range of the fight, though. Mount Samurai are committing in. This is a very expensive fight for Green. In fact, this isn't everything. Second wave's coming in. Yellow's also mirroring. This game is absurd. And yes, the UI is bugged for the Japanese. He does indeed have the melee attack, so he has +3. A little bit surprised he didn't get the fitted level work. I think at least that is worth it against Keshiks, especially because Keshiks are lower damage knights. So removing that is actually more meaningful. Louis, numbers are starting to favor him here. He almost has as many Keshiks as there are Mount Samurai. Dude, I feel like Green is just memeing. There's a stage where this kind of looked good, but you need a conversion point, right? Like, when you see this many crossbows, you should be going Raxes. Onabagisha just feels like a brain-dead choice here, right? Like, actually, Onabagisha Spearman kills everything that the Mongols are doing. I generally can't tell at this point if Green is memeing or if they just feel stuck. It's really important to highlight that transitions are the hardest thing into RTSs, and Walling's the easiest. I can't believe this. The solution to the trade. And oh my god, the traders, what? Mount Samurai, they see the crossbows again. There's no arrow from the Khan either. This is a terrible fight for Yellow. Green, just as soon as it looks like it's getting close to just favoring the Mongols, he immediately strikes back in a big way. Heavy damage done here. Traders also are going to be on the front line, and he needs to get a new wave of defenders here. Otherwise, his eco lead is going to shrink. In fact, it's already starting to shrivel. Absolutely insane. The crazy thing is that Green's Mount Samurai count barely went down. I think it was 36, went down to 26. It definitely felt much harsher on Mongol's side here, right? I feel like Louis lost a lot more out of this. Great micro as well, just to stick on the remaining traders. He knows he's going to lose the Mount Samurai here, but he just wants to shrink the eco. The problem I have, guys, is this guy's about as stubborn as a bull. I don't know what to say to him to convince him otherwise at this point. I feel like Mount Samurai was winning you the game, and now it's losing you the game. I was going to make a really, really bad joke about his obsession with horses. I'm going to stay off it. Well, I can definitely guarantee that someone in this neighborhood should open up a glue factory, though. Because with the amount of dead horses around here, you make a hell of a killing. Like, I hesitate to think how many ponies have died in the course of this game. Enough ponies have died in this game to deeply scar a generation of MLP fans. Kurultai? Wait, what? No. How does he keep getting away with this? Oh my god. Outpost being sniped instead. So it looks like he's trying to strip vision. This would make sense if you were going for a transition. I don't think green's going for a transition, though. They might be going for a tech up. They're saving up a lot of food. What's MLP? It's My Little Pony. Yeah, but Arcleave, you may be an expert on Japan A-clicking, but your A-clicking doesn't involve castle age units, so... Oh no, no! Okay, out of all the ways you could stop him fully walling the trade, this might be one of the most poetic. You can't stop trade. I am trade. Oh no, he can wall around though. He just needs to kill the outpost. Are you kidding? Like, what the Ah yes, the market strategy. Oh my god. Raids are still going to come in though. Keshiks are falling behind, and that Yam is making it so hard to stay away from them. I just don't see how this ends well for green. Because you're going to run out of gold. Like, you're practically out of gold as it is. You've got a 4k vein here, and then a very risky 8k vein. Now, I know that I said practically out of gold. He's got 12k in total there for the calculations. But, like, this is not safe. This is way too close to the Mongols. Green is playing all aggro, no defense. That's all well and good if you get a knockout punch. You know, like, for everyone who's been playing full art again, going for, like, a power fist while wearing no armor makes you very agile. But it also means if someone manages to power fist you back, you're dead. Fisting's dangerous, folks. Prototype buffs in, Mount Samurai. Oh, this feels like a bad fight. Attack speed arrow does get activated. Yellow will always win this fight. Green, this is over. I just don't see a way now. Unbelievable. They had such a dominant position in this game, but were never able to find that transition. Raids are at least, again, in on the trade, but the problem is the trade boom is just so big. 31 in total. And I don't feel like you're going to do enough damage anymore. Meanwhile, at this stage, Yellow could consider just starting to hit your base. I think instead you just go after the gold, to be honest with you, because diving a Shogunate castle is a death sentence. But if you discover this 8k vein and shut it down, then the Mounted Samurai tap stops working, right? Keshiks are starting to move across here. He does know about it. He's scouted this out now, so he has vision on this area. And yeah, I'm just going to hide the text because people are just getting baited by it. Don't you just love how great Cap's Rage is? Kappa. He has got some text. Interestingly enough, he even has the lumber preservation, but for some reason this UI says he doesn't. So yeah, ignore that completely. I'm going to take it away so you guys don't get baited. Mount Samurai Rider again. How does this ever end well for green? That's what I'm really struggling with, is like, I don't see green's win condition with this build now. Because at this rate, you're going to be forced to build mass spears. Maybe you go imp and do it, because it looks like green is saving up finally for him. Like, oh my god, it took long enough. Okay, that is an intriguing decision. Castle the Crow is really smart here, guys, because if he trades from this trade post, he'll get almost 2,000 resources every few minutes, right? It's every 5 minutes, if I remember correctly. Might not sound like a lot, but for a guy who's going to drain the map of gold, adds up over time. And then when you consider the Yoroshiros, the additional ones he's going to get in Imperial Age, he could move over to Onobugisha. The problem is, I don't think green understands what a stable is. Like, I'm pretty sure on green's keyboard right now, some of these keys don't exist. So, like, WS isn't a thing. Oh, sorry, WS is the only thing. He doesn't have a Q that he can press. That's why he didn't have Raxes. Well, he had the Rax. Sorry, that's not true. He did have some Spearmen, and then forgot they existed. So tech up complete. My god, though. Louis just matched the timing. White Stupa coming in. It's not going to stop. This is the Donati of America. All they know are horseback samurai. Would Onimush be a good addition to hunt the Keshiks while keeping all Cavcom? Yes, at an early point. No, now. The problem with building them now is with all the Yam everywhere, the Keshiks would just go straight onto the Onimusha. So he needed it earlier. But now, with a limited amount of samurai, he's going to try to take on the entire Mongol army. I just don't see it. Second wave's coming in. I mean, you're outnumbered here. Outgunned. He doesn't have any clear transition. He's just going for a key drop. Wait, is that even close enough? Rocket launcher's 8 range, right? No, 9. Okay, yeah, that should be good then. He should barely be able to snipe the traders. The problem is the base damage is only 80, which means if it's only the cannon shooting, it's not going to work. Castle is at least going to go up, barely. And this should at least slow things down, but Louis has already started to queue up the bombard now. He's actually just going to try to blitz it. That's a terrible trade for Louis. Because if he doesn't wait for the bombard, the new wave of Mountain Samurai can come in to save this. I don't like what Louis is doing here. He's still got a lot of crossbows at least, but the burn damage is almost already removed. Mountain Samurai are now going to just march through. And with the keep only down to half HP, I just don't see this working. Louis jumped the gun here. Not enough Keshiks anymore. Bombards haven't arrived yet. And now he's just got a bunch of crossbows sitting underneath the keep. Looks like he's going to be able to push this away. Bombard has finally arrived. Okay, thank goodness. Where did that come from? Oh! Golf claps. Okay, so he did have a siege workshop close by. Green's going to try to keep this castle alive. But guys, this is over. Like, it's just done. At the moment I say it, GG gets called. I think we can agree that although a lot of Japanese games involve one unit type to win, every once in a while, it might be worth transitioning. But guys, Mountain Samurai are OP.